Bible actually has the answer to every single thing you could ever go through in life. If you're proud, raise it a little higher, because I was trying to count, make sure I got everybody. Okay, all right. Now, you guys have just cut 10 minutes out of my lesson, because if you didn't raise your hand, I had some stuff to say. So great. No. So, since we believe this, there's some things that I got to show you by way of Scripture, but I want us to look at Proverbs 3. In Proverbs 3, particularly verses, the key obviously would be verse 3 through 6. Actually, I like 1 through 10. And actually, the whole third chapter is really, really great. Let me cut through the chase. 5 and 6. Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and do not lean on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he will make straight your paths. Be not wise in your own eyes, verse 7. Fear the Lord and turn away from evil. It will be healing to your flesh and refreshment to your bones. Honor the Lord with your wealth, and with the first fruits of all of your produce. Then your barns will be full with plenty, and your vats will be bursting with wine. Clearly, he is saying by trusting in him, there is an overflowing, that our cup would overflow if we would just allow him to reign supreme in our lives. Now, I want to bring this home when we look at the principles of what James said. That'll help bring the scripture alive. So turn me to James chapter 1. In James chapter 1, James says something very profound in that he says in verse number 2, count it all joy, my brothers, when you meet trials of various kinds, for you know that the testing of your faith produces steadfastness. And let steadfastness, or patience, as the King James says, have its full effect, that you may be perfect and complete, lacking in nothing. Now, to count it all joy when you're going through trouble does not make sense in the carnal side. If we look at the humanity viewpoint, counting it all joy when stuff happens is not, doesn't look right. Looks crazy, actually. Looks phony, maybe. Even we use phony there. It looks like you are out of touch with reality because you're not having a heart attack over trouble. God doesn't want us to be that way. He wants the world to look at us as living epistles and decide, is that how you react to trouble? You react to trouble by a kind word? When you hear negativity coming at you, your response is not negativity? You don't fight fire with fire, you use water? Well, as a child of God, absolutely. But how can you keep a disposition of joy in the midst of trouble? That's what I'm going to teach you today in this lesson. But I want to separate from you the difference in a trial that you go through created by God to teach you something, and when you cause on your own that God had nothing to do with it. This scripture does not apply in every circumstance. The only circumstance, in fact, that it applies to are things that happen to you that are beyond your control. Things that happen to you that are beyond your control, God's trying to tell you something. Stuff that you keep doing over and over again and messing up, guess whose fault that is? He didn't tell you to count that joy. That's not what he's talking about here. So, Peter says it this way in 1 Peter chapter 2. He says, if you are buffeted for your faults and you take that patiently, he says, what glory do you get? The idea is none. If you did some stuff and got in trouble for it, God says, well, that's what you get. But he says, but if you go through something unjustly, if something happens to you that you didn't cause and you take that patiently, this is thankworthy to God. Different scenario altogether. So you can only count trouble joy if it's trouble that God has led you to. Because if God leads you to it, then he will lead you through it. That ought to be a song or something, shouldn't it? Somebody write up one, right? Thomas could write a song about that, but he's not listening right now. Anyway. So when we think of understanding what God purposed in this text, we have to understand it from the context in which it was written. James says, count it all joy when God leads you into something. When God makes a promise to you. When it's a challenge to be faithful. And it takes some time. Faith has to be tested. You remember when James went on about faith without works is dead? And if it's not tested, then how do you know? And he used Abraham as a great example. He used Rahab as another example. I want to borrow Abraham's example for a moment. In Abraham's example, and really it's a Sarah example, example because I want you to see it done wrong. God made a promise to them that they'd have a child. And this was kind of silly at the time that God said it when you look at it carnally. I say silly because they were older than anybody in this room at that time. And Sarah was barren. We were never supposed to have kids. But God says, you're going to have a kid through Sarah. Now that's some strong faith, isn't it? That meant God's going to do something impossible to us. God is getting ready to extend beyond what man can see. Because a barren woman, way in age, even if she had 153 kids before that, she was too old to be having them now. But yet God said she would. Well, time went on. As you know the story, Sarah got just a little impatient. Patient couldn't have her perfect working Sarah, no. Sarah said, you know, Hagar's cute, maybe if she goes in, we can get a baby that way and I'll just kind of help God along. Sarah wasn't trying to be evil, she wasn't trying to mess up her marriage, she wasn't trying to do any of that, but she knew how bad her husband wanted a kid. She understood about that, and when God made that promise and opened up that can of worms to them, that obviously was a sore subject. Do you feel what I'm saying? Sarah can't give him a kid. Every man then wanted a kid. She can't do it. God said that he'd work it out. He's taking too long. She's feeling guilty. She's got to do something. See, so don't beat up on Sarah. That's some psychosocial issue going on there. But the idea is she sends in Hagar, and you know, Abraham, he didn't want to. I'm just kidding. That was for the guys. All right. So Sarah sends in Hagar, and it happens, and Ishmael is born. Now, of course, that was not God's plan, and a lot of trouble happened as a result of that. In fact, even today, you have the Arab nation and a whole bunch of folks believing from that seed. That wasn't the seed of Abraham. Ishmael wasn't that. Ishmael was promised that God was going to bless them, but it was a far different blessing than what Isaac got. And Isaac was the seed of promise, the Bible tells us. But the point is, it was time for them to be patient. It was time for them to let their faith show. Sarah lost a little faith. She did not believe what God said, and therefore, Ishmael was born. On the flip side, remember in Joshua, we did an extensive study in Joshua. And we learned that Joshua was clearly a man of faith. You remember he was the one that said, as for me and my house, we're going to serve the Lord. Amen. Well, when they took over the promised land, and they magnificently, I should say God did, they didn't, destroyed Jericho. Jericho had the largest wall on the planet. They knocked it down with the power of God. I say God knocked it down, so all I did was march around and blow some horns. But the wall fell, and that was the biggest defense for Jericho. Nobody could get over the wall. God knocks the wall out, Jericho is easily taken, and God told them before it would happen. What did I say? I did say Joshua, right? Yeah. Okay, good. So he said, the first war, there's 7. The first one, all that belongs to me. Normally you guys could have spoils of the war, but this first one, it's my honor. I want you to give all of that to me. Everybody said, okay, it sounds good to me. You know, and I think at that point, some probably were still questioning the wall crumbling. Because he didn't say, make these 2 sticks of dynamite and take it to the wall. He didn't say anything like that. He told them to march around the wall and he'll do the rest. Blow the horn on the 7th time and I got you. Okay, that sounds like how you invade somebody. All right, we're going to go. God said it. It was time for faith to kick in. They were supposed to be patient and do what God said. And God said, look, I got the fix in. You'll win every battle. You'll win every single battle. My favorite battle when they were fighting was the 3rd battle that they had, where they were fighting and God sent these big boulders out of the sky to knock over their enemy. I thought that was just so cool. I could visualize that fight. You fighting and there's 3 of them coming at you and then a boulder hits them. It's like, oh. But God just had the fix put in when they were right. Well, after Jericho, we know what Achan did, and they had to deal with Achan. But Joshua remembered what God said. His faith wouldn't allow him to forget it. And God said you would win every single war. They beat Jericho, and the next was Ai, and Ai wasn't strong, it said. They said, oh, we don't even need a lot of people to go down there. And they sent a couple thousand people, and boom, Ai was a little stronger than they thought. Well, now Joshua could have said, that tears it. Send everybody down there and let's fight. Well, if he had done that, they would have lost. How do you know, Clyde? Well, God said that as long as they would do what he said, that they would be victorious. By the mere fact that they lost to little Ai meant they weren't doing what God said, and they weren't